Hello chess friends, and welcome to another game analysis. In this video we will analyze the game between grandmasters Nisipeanu and Rapport. They played this game in the round 7, which is the last round of the Sparkassen chess meeting, and White opened the game with the move e4, Black play move e5, we have knight to f3, knight to c6, and then bishop to b5. This is the ruy-lopez. And Richard played the move a6, which attacks the bishop, so bishop goes back to a4. This is the main line. Bishop goes to e7, and white makes the castle. Knight to f6, so now he attacks the pawn on e4, so that pawn can be protected. And here main move is a rook to e1, but Nisipeanu did not play that move. He protects the pawn with the, another pawn from the d3. And then black played move b5, which attacks the bishop, so bishop needs to go on b3. Now he's on a very good diagonal, he wants to make more pressure on f7. And black played move d6, he could also play the castle, but he played d6, and his idea is to develop his bishop from the square c8. White played move a3, so that move is sometimes very good because he can move the bishop back on a2. And black played move a5, so it is clear he wants to advance with the pawn on square a4, and white played knight to c3, rook to b8, and then white pushed the pawn on a4. Black did not capture, so he pushed the pawn on b4, and knight is under attack, so he can choose between squares e2 or d5, which looks the best for him. And he tried to play active, and knight to d5 was played. Black captured that knight on d5 because that was a very good piece there, and then bishop recapture. Right now the bishop attacks on c6 this knight, and black needs to protect the knight, so he can protect it with the bishop or with the queen or with the rook. So the best option is of course with the bishop, because with that move he will develop the bishop from the square c8, and he can do it in two ways: bishop to b7 or bishop to d7. So Richard decided to develop his bishop on d7, and after that white tries to play active, and he recognized that black did not make the castle yet, so he tried to attack the king. It was also possible to play just a slow game, playing the move c3, offer pawns for trade, and also of course controlling square d4. So after, for example, black makes the castle, he can go rook to e1, or he can play bishop to e3, just develop the piece. But that did not happen in the game, and in this position white tried to make more pressure on the pawn on f7, so he brings the knight here on the g5. It looks that that knight is not protected enough, because only bishop protect the knight, and he's under attack for 2 times from the bishop and from the queen. But when he captured on g5, then we have one move in between, which is the queen to h5, which also attacks the bishop and threat mate on square f7. So he cannot protect both of them, and the black moved the queen on the square f6. So now f7 pawn is protected, but bishop captured the piece back on the square g5, and after queen goes to g6, queen captures g6, h captures g6. There is no queens on the board, and it looks that white is playing with the 2 bishops, and his position looks slightly better for now. And here he play move c3, knight goes to e7, attacks the bishops. Bishop needs to go back, and it is much better than staying on d5, because knight will capture, that will create a double pawns on d3 and d5. So bishop c4. After that black played f6, attacks another bishop. Bishop goes back to square e3, and then black play move g5. So he put all his pawns on dark squares, and which means that this bishop can be very useful in the endgame, because he can attack them from behind. So let's see, white play move d4, knight goes to g6, and then white play move d5, so b capture c3, and then white did not capture on c3, because he thought that that will destroy his structure, so he played move b3, and he will take the pawn on c3 later, because it is very hard to black to protect him. White can just play rook c1 or rook c3 to take that pawn. So black here play move c5, d capture en passant c6, bishop captures c6, and then pawn on e4 is hanging, so f3 was played and he's protected. Knight to f4, which is very good square for that knight. He is very useful there. So we can imagine the square where we want to transpose our knight. This is one of the squares which looks the best on the board right here on the f4. So white player rook from f to d1, and after that we have king to e7. Of course, there is no need to create a castle or trying to prepare the castle, because pawn on d6 is hanging, and of course if he somehow find a way to make a castle, it is not very useful for him because it is endgame, and this king is very useful in the center. So king e7 was played. After that rook goes to c1 and rook h c8. Rook captured on c3, and then black play move d5, so he wants to open the position, and bishop is hanging, pawn is under attack, so black also tried to play d4, which will create a fork to attack bishop and a rook. And here white needs to do something with that pawn on d5, so he decided to capture the pawn. Black recapture, and here white cannot capture on d5 because that will open the c file, and the rook is hanging on square c3, so he will lose the rook that way. And first he wants to capture on f4, and now this bishop on d5 is not protected, so if black recapture on f4, then rook can just grab the piece for free. But in this position, after bishop capture on f4, bishop capture on c4, and after that bishop capture another pawn here on e5, so rook capture on the b3, and things are getting complicated right now. So it is good to notice that they're playing with opposite colored bishops. So if they trade the rooks, that will probably be a draw on the board. So here we have bishop to d4, and after that rook goes to b4, which wants to attack the pawn on a4 and also support the knight. But here Nisipeanu created two rooks on the c file, so he make a double rooks here, and they're very powerful because they attack the bishop, which cannot be moved, because if black moves the bishop somewhere, then the rook on c8 is hanging. So black played the move king to e6. He wants to support the center with his king, and bishop goes back to f2. We have rook capture on a4, and then bishop goes to b6. It is clear that white can also take on a5 in the next move, because if black recapture on a5, then bishop on c4 is hanging. In this position, black played the move rook to b8, which attacks the bishop, and his main idea is to unpin the c file, so he wants to move bishop later. But bishop goes to c7, and he attacks the rook. Rook to b4 to protect the bishop, because he cannot play something like this. Rook to b7, that will attack the bishop, but then white can capture on c4, and after trading the rooks, white will be playing with the piece up. So he played rook to b4. After that, pawn capture on a5, so rook capture a5, and they capture c4, rook capture c4, rook captures c4, and then king to e5. So in this position they agree the draw. It is clear that this endgame is a draw, which because both of them are playing with 3 pawns on the king side, and both of them is playing with the rooks, so they can just give a lot of checks to white king or to black king, and this game will probably finish with a draw. So they agreed the draw in this position. That was the game between the grandmasters Nisipeanu and Rapport from the Sparkassen chess meeting in Dortmund. I hope you enjoyed this game analysis, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.